stuff. So
Okay.
all right, so let's see here. I'm trying to figure out. Okay. All right, guys. Well, hello and welcome. Stephen Howell here in another video, and I have a very special guest today. Andrew Massaro, the Maestro, owner of Rockstar Rehabs, based out of Tampa, Florida. He has been a titan in the industry for the last 13 years and has worked with some incredible people and has been able to help tons and tons of people. So I first found out about Andrew probably about 8 years ago when I was going through a lifestyle optimization, self-development program. So I really have some fond memories of that, and so it's just, you know, it's an honor, Andrew, to be sitting here chatting with you. And so, guys, welcome here. If you're new to the YouTube channel, I'm so glad to have you. Definitely consider subscribing and browsing some of the videos. We're going to get right into it today. So if you are a real estate investor, wholesaler, entrepreneur, wanting to learn real estate, definitely going to be dropping some nuggets today. And the goal is just to provide you guys some value. So hopefully we do that. So Andrew, man, so glad to have you out here today. Why don't you kind of give us just you know, an overview of kind of your journey over the last, you know, 13 years, and we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, you bet, Steve. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So back in like 03, I graduated college in 03. After that, I immediately went and got a corporate job. I was a sales and marketing rep for a local radio station in Tampa Bay, Magic 94.9. And I thought that, you know, I had really kind of made it in life. I had a college degree. I had a corporate job. I got to put on a tie every day and go to work, and I was like, man, this is great. Well, a few years into it, I grew to hate it, and I was just like, oh man, this is brutal. I can't do it anymore. I can't sit in this cubicle. I was making peanuts. I was making like 35 grand a year, and I had to put up with all this stuff that you have to put up with in the corporate environment. So, you know, bad management and the most ridiculous mandatory meetings, backstabbing coworkers, commission cuts. I mean, in the 3 years I was at the radio station, they cut our commission 6 times, 6 times, and it wasn't performance based. It was across the board, everybody, because it was sort of a dying industry, and they needed to make up some money. How are you going to make it up? You're going to cut the salespeople. So that's what they should have done, is they should have cut payroll or cut people, but instead they cut commissions, and it was just too much. I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore, and I knew that it wasn't the company or the industry. It was me, really. I'm not cut out to work in that kind of environment. I'm not a corporate guy. I'm a freedom guy. I need to feel free in order to be the person that these corporate companies want you to be. They want you to be personable and you know, punctual and motivated and driven and, you know, all these things. But they don't, in my opinion, provide you with that kind of environment that fosters those emotions and that drive. So it wasn't a creative environment at all. We had gray walls, gray carpet, gray cubicles, but yet we were supposed to be marketers where we're supposed to create ideas. So to me, it just wasn't working, and I wasn't going to go get another job because I had other jobs in the past, and I grew to hate those too. So after the honeymoon wore off, then I was just like, just pulling my hair out, and I had the fortune to work for some really good people, some really good companies, but it just wasn't me. So I said, I got to do something different. It was 04. The country was going through a real estate boom at the time. way bigger than it is today. I mean, I know people who just get into real estate today are like, oh man, the market's great, it's humming along, and it is. But in 2000 to 2005, oh, crazy booming, and it was I was just watching people make money hand over fist in real estate. Some were friends, some were family, some were just people I was just seeing from a distance, and they were killing it. And I was like, something's wrong here. I'm sitting in a cubicle thinking of the least painful way to kill myself, making 35 grand a year and dealing with all this other BS. And here's one of my best friends. He's a mortgage broker. The guy only works 4 days a week. He's making about $250,000 a year. He just bought a 3-story townhome in a very prestigious area of South Tampa. I was like, this is not right. If all these people can do this, I sure as hell can. So that's when I made the decision. So I went to 3 people that I trusted, and actually 4 people, and asked their opinion. And before I quit my job, well, actually, let me back up for a second. Before I quit my job, I sought out a teacher or a coach or a mentor, because I knew there was no way in hell I was going to be able to do it myself. And in those days, the information boom in the real estate space hadn't hit yet. So, now you can jump on Google and search wholesaling houses or how to wholesale a house or wholesale real estate and get a gajillion websites and videos and books and ebooks and courses and software programs that'll help you do it. In those days, it wasn't that way. Google wasn't even the go-to browser. It was Yahoo in those days. And so I remember doing a Yahoo search, and there wasn't hardly anything. There was nothing on wholesaling, just real estate investing, just kind of like a blanket. We'll teach you how to invest in real estate. There was only a few people out there doing it. Rich Dad was one of the companies out there doing it. So I had an old friend, a mutual friend between you and I, a guy by the name of Preston Ely, who I was good friends with in high school, but had lost touch with him over the past 10 years. So I had seen him maybe 2 or 3 times in the previous decade. But somehow or another, and I've just chalked it up as fate, I ended up on his buyer's list. In those days, because the market was booming so big, everyone was considered a potential buyer of property. You could walk into a bank, you could walk into any bank, and you didn't have to be an investor or anything. You walk into a bank and say, listen, I need an interest-only loan. I can buy a house. I can buy this house for this price, 100 grand. I can put 20 grand into it. I can sell it for 200 grand in 60 days and pay you back. And they were saying, okay, here's your loan. That was happening everywhere. It was incredible. So, I had a brother-in-law who was a fireman who was rehabbing, 2 or 3 houses a year on interest-only loans on the side, and he was making about 100 grand per. So he was making like 60 grand as a fireman, working, a couple days a week, but he was making about 300 grand as a rehabber and only doing a couple of deals. So it was crazy. So you would put everybody on your buyer's list. You'd put your parents, your siblings, your cousins, anybody you knew would be on your buyer's list, and you would poach other people's email list. So like, a wholesaler would send out a blanket email marketing a property to like 1,000 people. So I not 1,000, let's say 100 people on the email group. So I would go in his group and I would see if it had a name attached to it and I knew the name, I'd be like, oh, I already got that guy. But if there were names or numbers that I didn't recognize, I would just copy all those people, and then now they're part of my buyer's list. And that's the way it was. It was like the Wild West, but it was awesome. So somehow or another, he got my email address at the radio station. So I started getting emails from him, and they were always just group emails, and they were advertising property. And I really didn't understand. He was just saying, hey, got this under contract. Here's the information. Here's what I'm selling for. And then, every time, what I did notice is that he would always send a follow-up email after when he got a verbal agreement from a buyer, and it always just says sold. He would resend the same one and say sold at the top, and then that's what I took notice of. I was like, how did Preston get my email? I'm not sure what he's even marketing here. I don't understand, but I know he just sold a house in like 30 seconds, and that really piqued my interest. So when I decided I wanted to go into real estate, that's when I said, I need to start talking to people. So he was one of the first people I talked to, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't really want to be a mortgage broker or a realtor. I wanted to be an investor, but I didn't know how. I didn't know anything. I just said, hey, I just want to capitalize on this market. And one of the emails that he sent out was a long email. If anybody out there is on his list, he can send out some lengthy emails. So he sent a long one out, and the gist of it was that, basically, you guys know I've been an investor for a few years now. Well, now I just got my license. I'm a licensed agent now. So if you or anybody is going to buy a new construction house, house that's just being built, which there was a lot of new construction going on, list me as your realtor. I'll collect a commission and we'll split it. And a lot of people were doing that in those days because there was so much new construction. Developers were given sales commissions to any agent that was listed on the application. So if you went to a new development and you filled out an application and they said who referred you and you put a realtor down there and you ended up buying a house, they would cut a commission check. And these commission checks were huge, talking like 20, 30, 40, 50 grand in commission because the prices were so inflated. So that's what he was saying. List me as your realtor if you're buying a new construction home. I'll collect a check and I'll cut you 50% back. So that's not really what caught my eye, and I can't even believe I read the whole email because it was so long. But again, I chalk it up to fate. Again, the universe was bringing us together. And I read all the way to the bottom, and it was the last line that made the light bulb go off. And he said, you'll see my billboards or keep your eyes out for my billboards. They're coming out soon. And that's when I said, oh, he's going to do billboards? Because I was a radio rep, and we actively sold against billboard advertising, or what they call outdoor advertising in the industry. So I knew everything about that industry. So I said, oh, this is my in right here. So I replied back and said, hey, dude, good to hear from you. Looks like you're doing well. Congratulations. But listen, if you're going to be investing in billboard advertising, let's go to lunch and talk. I'll educate you on that so you know what you're walking into. And I said, in turn, you can tell me about what you do. It sounds interesting. He said, okay. So we met at a restaurant on Dale Mabry Highway called J. Alexander's. It's no longer called that. It's something else now. But we met there, and that was a very, very fateful day. So I taught him all about billboards. He ended up never doing them. But he told me about what he was doing, and that's when I learned the term wholesaling. I had never heard that term before. I didn't even know it existed. It's not like today where there's, you could walk out of your front door and trip over 10 wholesalers on the way to your car. In those days, there weren't hardly any. It was him and a couple other guys. That was it. So he described it to me. He's like, man, I was telling him, hey, I want to get into real estate, but I don't know what, capitalize on the market. And I was like, I just don't know. And he's like, dude, just do what I do. And I was like, well, what is it? And he goes, it's called wholesaling. You find a motivated seller with a fixer-upper of a house. You find a buyer. In those days, it was just a buyer, not a cash buyer. You find somebody who wants to buy it and fix it up. You bring them together, and you charge a nice hefty fee for doing it. And he said, you just broker the deal. There's no, you don't have to get any loans. You don't need any cash, no cash out of pocket. You have no risk in the deal. You're not making any repairs or upgrades. He was like, man, it's amazing. And as soon as he described it to me, I instantly fell in love. I was like, this is what I've been looking for. Everything else I had heard before that or read about, it didn't quite do it for me. And then I heard this, and I was like, boom, this is it. So I asked him if he wouldn't mind teaching me some things about this, and he was kind of hesitant. He was like, all right, whatever. He's like, shoot me some emails. So before we left, we agreed on that. Before we left lunch, he said, here's your first assignment. Go buy 2 books. One's called Real Estate Riches by a guy named Dolph DeRoos, and it's a real short, easy read, and the other one is called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I said, okay, done. I had never even heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Corporate guys don't read books about being an entrepreneur. You know, they read books about how to sell and how to influence people and stuff like that. So the restaurant at that time was literally attached to a Borders bookstore. If you guys remember those. Big, huge monstrosity, 30,000 square foot bookstore, which are no longer around. Amazon put them right out of business. So he walked to his car. I walked next door to Borders, pulled both of those books right off the shelf, bought them. That was on a Friday. Took them home, started tearing into them. I read both cover to cover over the weekend. Shot him an email Monday morning and said, dude, I am on fire. I read both those books. I am ready to go. You got to teach me what you're doing. Let's do this. And he was kind of like, I thought he'd be like, all right, dude, I'm ready, man. Let's do it. Being that role of friends. And he was not like that. He was kind of like, well, he was impressed that I read both books. I bought them and read them over the weekend. But his way of looking at it was, I'm going to be training my future competition. Why would I want to do that? So he was just kind of hesitant about it. He was like, you know, he goes, just send me some emails with your questions. I'll answer them. So I started doing that. But I could tell over like the next month or two that I wasn't a high priority to him. And I needed a coach. I needed somebody that was there that I could call up or I could email and get a quick response. And it just wasn't that way with him with our current arrangement. So I started looking elsewhere. And I was going to join Rich Dad. I had applied. They called me up. I mean, man, their pitch was incredible in those days. I'm sure it's still good. I mean, they really put the screws to you. And I was ready to do it. In those days, it was like $6,800. Now I can imagine it's probably like 68 grand or something now. But in those days, $6,800. But I didn't have any money. I didn't have $6,800. So I was going to throw it on a credit card. And I remember this is a defining moment in my life and career. I was upstairs in my bedroom. Remember, this is late 2004. I was upstairs in my bedroom. And my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was on the bed. I was pacing back and forth and telling her, this is what I want to do. And, you know, she knew I had been dealing with Preston, but I said, you know, he's not willing to teach me. So there's this program out there. I just read the book. They have a coaching program. I said, you know, I think this is all lining up. She's like, great. How much is it? I said, well, it's about $7 grand. She was like, oh, $7,000. Are you kidding me? She was like, you don't have $7 grand. I said, I know, but I got a credit card and I want to put it on. And she was like, listen, by the way, she's much smarter than me. She was like, have you asked Preston what he thinks about this program? Or are you joining it? And I said, no. She was like, well, why don't you call him and ask him, you know, before you drop $6,800 on a credit card? And I said, yeah, that's smart. I'll do that. So I called him up and I said, hey, man, here's what I need. Here's what I'm thinking about doing. You know, they got this program. And he was like, how much is it? $6,800. And he was like, nah, don't do that. He goes, all right, meet me at Starbucks tomorrow. That's where his office was. Meet me at Starbucks tomorrow. This time, bring your checkbook. We'll work something out. So that's how I got. I basically said, I'm going to join this Rich Dad program. What really happened is I planted the seed in his head that you could actually get paid. You can get paid for sharing your knowledge and your experience or teaching people what you do. And that literally launched a new career for him. So it launched a new career for me. The next day, I scratched him a check for $1,000. It was a year-long mentorship, and plus I agreed to bring him all my deals, and we would partner on them 50-50. So it was $1,000 plus a 50-50 revenue share. And yeah, so he realized he could create another stream of income just by teaching people what he's doing, getting more leads coming in for half the profit. and I became, a wholesaling student. So, I always tease him to this day. I'm like, dude, all those millions of dollars you've made over the years, I said, I should get a cut of some of that. If it wasn't for me beating your door down and hitting you over the head with a hammer about teaching me to wholesale houses, you would never probably become a coach. He became a national coach and mentor after that. In fact, after I graduated, I started coaching his students. So, but anyway, that's how I got started in the business. And 6 months into that year-long mentorship, I quit my job. I went to, I alluded earlier, I went to four people that I really trusted before I quit my job. I had done a couple of deals, couple of wholesale deals, and I was like, man, I can do this. I don't need this stupid job anymore. The smart way would have been to replace my income, but I didn't do that. And I just said, you know what, I've done a couple of deals, I can do it. I'm going out on my own. So I talked to my girlfriend at the time, and she was like, I told her what I was going to do, and she was like, no, forget about it. She's like, that's, because her income was tied to mine. We were living together, and she was like, man, it's too risky. You're not ready yet. I was really bummed. Thankfully, I didn't stop there. I went and spoke to my older brother, my father, and Preston. And I said, here's what I'm thinking about doing. And all three of them said, do it. At that time, I didn't, I wasn't married yet. I didn't have any kids. I had very few bills. I just had a mortgage. I didn't even have a car payment. And my window was wide open. So I needed to strike while the iron was hot if I was going to do this. And I could always go back and get another corporate sales job. I mean, I had 3 of them prior. I had a lot of friends in the industry. I had, built up a lot of goodwill. So there was no doubt I could get a corporate sales job in no time flat. And remember, the economy was booming. The housing market was booming. The economy was booming. It was, people were hiring left and right. So they all three said, do it. So I opened up a credit card. I secured a loan from my father if I needed it. I said, if I need a loan I calculated $12,000, can I get it from you to start and run this business? He said yes. I never took it. I did charge up quite a bit on that credit card, but I ended up paying it off. And the way I look at it is, hey, I bought my freedom with that credit card. So, and then 6 months into that mentorship with Preston, I quit my job. And that was in the summer of 2005, and I've been a full-time wholesaler ever since. I mean, there's been some ups and downs, and there were some lean times, especially at the beginning there. But you know what? I made it through. I haven't had a job. I haven't had a job in 13 years. I've been on my own. I married my girlfriend. I have 2 kids. I have a house and 2 cars and 2 college funds and life insurance and all these things that I have to pay for now, and it all works out. So that's my story. Sorry, I know it was a little lengthy. I get to talking, but that's how I got into the industry. Hey, buddy, I think you're on mute. Are you on mute?
I am on mute. Yeah, sorry about that, man. That was absolutely incredible, man. Like, seriously, like I was watching this from I have to tell you this. I was watching this, and obviously this is like such extra amazing details. So it's like bringing it full circle to me because I remember watching in my cubicle with my headset on. I was working in a financial institution call center, and I would help enroll people into their 401ks. And this was about 2007, 2008. And I like literally remember watching the video with yourself and Preston, and that kind of, at the time I had just paid for like kind of like a high level program, one of the national programs. It was like 5 or 7 grand, something like that. And I was kind of just dinking and dunking around for a little while with real estate. And so like watching your video with Preston there, it like cemented the idea in my mind, like I need to find like someone who can really, really like help me with this. So it was powerful for me. And then I was at that corporate job for a little while, and similarly to like what you were talking about, like, you know, I had a girlfriend at the time who's now my wife, and we just had a baby and stuff. And just looking back, like my transitional period was between like 2008 and 2011 out of the corporate world. So, man, I just thank you for sharing that, because it's like bringing it full circle for me, man. And just so I got into the real estate world in about 2008, 2009, just after that, you know, the market had crashed. So I had heard things about, you know, 2004, 2005, but I've never heard it in this light. So that's just like, and now seeing the market heat back up, just hearing it, you know, from that perspective, like that's awesome, man. So I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
Gosh, I know there's so many that can relate, you know, to that story of like just, you know, not, and I felt that too. Like I was grateful for my job, but like there was just this like entrepreneurial spirit that like I wanted to be free. Like I wanted to have a tangible way to do it and stuff. So, man, that's awesome. So yeah, 13 years later, man, still free. And so what are you up to these days, Andrew?
I am, you might want to mute. And I can hear my voice going back. Well, I don't know if it's perfect, man. So I am wholesaling houses still chasing deals. It's funny, just about every year that I've been a full-time wholesaler, I have told myself, man, I'm gonna rehab some houses this year. And every time, it still hasn't happened, to the point where I've given up on it. Every time I get a house under contract, I'm just like, should I close on it and rehab it, or should I wholesale it? Oh, the hell with it. I'm just going to wholesale it out. And I've come to realize that wholesaling just fits my personality. It fits me. And that's why I fell in love with it. When I first heard about it at that lunch with Preston, he told me about it. I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. It's just my personality. I like low risk, which wholesaling is. I like low financial investment, which it is. High, so you know, low risk, high reward. I'm not a rehab guy. I don't know about construction and stuff like that. I also like fast transactions, in and out. And you know, if I can make 10 grand on average in 30 days, to me, I think I like that better than making, say, 20 grand, which I think is what most of my buyers probably make on the flip, in 90 or 120 days. So, and they get so much risk too. Most of them borrow money, and you have crews on the job, and you got to manage crews, and you know, people can get hurt. They're doing construction, stuff like that. So there's a lot more risk involved with that. Not to say that it's not a great niche and great industry. It is. Some of my best friends are rehabbers, and they make just boatloads of cash. But when I talk to them, all they do is complain. And I went to one of my job sites the other day, and there were tools all over the place, and I had to bitch out my contractor and this, that, and the other thing. And it just cements in my mind why I don't want to do that. That's not my thing. I just want to be in and out, low risk, high reward, and that's what wholesaling is. And I always tell my students, I'm like, hey, do what's natural to you. Do what you enjoy doing. You can make lots of money in any niche in real estate. Do what you enjoy. If you like taking a house, a junker, and then transforming it over the several months into something beautiful, and then selling it, be a rehabber. I mean, that's what you're going to love doing. If you're like me and you like to be in and out really fast, and you like, you know, negotiating with sellers and buyers, then you're a wholesaler. If you want long-term investments and you know, recurring income and stuff like that, go start buying up some rentals. So there's a million different things you can do, and you can make money in all of them. But do what fits your personality, and then once you get good at it, then you can branch out a little bit. So I know now I've given up on that idea of rehabbing some houses. It would take an extraordinary opportunity. Like if I got a great house in a great neighborhood at just, you know, 20 cents on the dollar, and it needed almost nothing, and I could make 50, 60 grand on it or something like that in 60 days, then yes, I might do it. But if it's your typical fixer upper, then I'm just going to wholesale it out. So so that's what I'm doing. I started out just in Tampa Bay, but now about 6 months ago, actually before that, a couple years ago, because the Bay Area had gotten so competitive, I went virtual and just started dropping mail in South Carolina. And we were doing deals there for a while. And then the mail, it just stopped converting. And our calls weren't as frequent and the deals weren't as consistent. And we tested out a bunch of different lists, and it really didn't show any promise enough to stay there and keep investing in it anyway. So then we came back local, brought our focus back local, and we switched our strategy up a little bit, and now we're cranking it out again. But now we've expanded. So now we do all the way from just above South Florida, so we don't go down into like the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area, because that area is saturated. If you think Tampa's saturated, I mean, that area is crazy saturated and crazy expensive. So we just let those guys down there do their thing. So right above there, you're talking like in Florida, like Brevard County, all the way up through Jacksonville, which is right on the Florida-Georgia border, Duval County, and everywhere in between. We handle, and I drive too. I'm the acquisition manager for the company, and my partner is sort of the disposition manager, and I make the drive. So I drive 3.5 hours north of Jacksonville, or 3 hours south to Port St. Lucie. I was there last week, and but that's okay. If I'm going to wrap up a deal that's going to make us 20 grand in revenue, then I don't mind taking a day and doing that drive. So it's got to be a hot lead. But so now we've expanded to almost the entire state. And so we're wholesaling doing that. And I'm currently mentoring with a company called Clever Investor out of Tempe, Arizona. So I still have my own coaching and mentoring company called Wholesale Coaching Inc. And I ran that for years. But I got tired of wearing all the different hats in the company. So I not only was the mentor, but I was also sales and marketing and customer service and billing and all that stuff. And I got tired of doing it. I just wanted to show up and teach. That's what I like doing. So I essentially outsourced all that stuff to another company. That company ended up being Clever Investor, which is owned by a really, really sharp titan in the industry, Cody Sperber, and basically that's what I do. So my company contracts with them, and they do all that stuff, and just all I got to do is show up, pick up the phone, and teach. And it's going pretty good. I've been with them for about 3 years now. So I'm wholesaling full time. I'm doing 2, 3, 4 student calls a day. So it keeps me really, really busy.
That is incredible, Andrew. I appreciate it big time, man. It's inspiring to like hear what you're doing, like what's evolved over the years, and just like it's the same reason I love this. Like some of my best friends are rehabbers, and I've told myself the same thing. Like, man, I'm gonna get into rehabbing, but I just love the cleanness of the transactions and just the in and out. Like you said, it fits my personality too. And what's cool is because people have different skill sets, different interests, and what I always tell people is like it's super cool because once you get really, really good at wholesaling and you understand the art of the marketing and building rapport with people and how to acquire the deals. And you actually serve up the end buyer, the rehabbers and the landlords with excellent deals, and you treat them right and always leave enough meat on the bone. Like relationships that can spring out of that. Like if they know that you want to get into rehabbing, like there's all sorts of partnerships, friendships, acquaintances that can develop. So it's just, it's something, I'm right there with you. So yeah, just a couple of questions for you as far as just best practices and stuff. So I know from back in the day when I was going through a lifestyle optimization personal development program called the Red Pill. That yourself and Preston were in, and that was just super like one of my favorite, still to this day, like one of my favorite personal development programs of all time. And at the time I was fresh out of college. It had such an impact on me. So I know you're big into personal development and stuff. Do you have I guess a productivity tip for the aspiring real estate investor? Maybe they're working a full-time job still, part-time job, or maybe they're now wholesaling full-time. Any tip or routine type thing, just one thing that has been working well for you lately?
Sure. And I don't know if it's just one thing, but one thing I can pass along is that, and this is a quote I read years and years ago, and it's one of my mottos. I have two mottos basically. One is the road to abundance is an emotional road. So it starts inside of you. I'll tell you more about that in a second. The second motto I live by is the greatest thing that you can do for the entire world is to make the most of yourself. So, and what that means is you lead by example. So if you, have a lot of money, or you're extraordinarily kind, or if you have an amazing family, or, if you have these things or display these things or are these things, people are going to inquire. People are going to take notice. Hey man, how do you afford that house? How do you drive that car? What do you do for a living? Man, your life seems amazing. What's your secret? People are going to ask and inquire, and you're going to pass on your secrets and your wisdom, and that's going to make changes in their life. And then some of those people are going to build themselves up, and people are going to ask them, and they'll pass on their wisdom and experience, and that's how real change happens. Not by pushing against the problems in society, but by being selfish, essentially, making the most of yourself, and then telling people your story who inquire. So, but the first one is what I want to touch on is, the road to abundance is an emotional road. So most people think, I got to be smart, I got to work hard, and that'll lead to success. Well, those can be two ingredients to your success, but they're not mandatory. I know some guys out there that can't even spell that good. Their vocabulary is not good, but you know what? They know how to do deals. And so, it depends on how you define smart or how you define hard work. I mean, I get more done probably in an hour than most people get done in 3 or 4 hours because I'm laser focused. But I don't work as many hours as most people out there. So, those things are they're arbitrary. But the one thing that is absolutely mandatory is your energy has to be in alignment with your goal, with your dream. So, for example, if you're saying, hey, I want to be rich, well, you can't have beliefs in your head or in your soul that money is the root of all evil, or that money is bad, or money is dirty, or people with money are greedy and, did something fraudulent in order to get there. If you hold those beliefs, those are butting heads with your desire to be rich. And guess what's going to win out? Your beliefs are going to win out. So that's why people, when I deal with students and they say to me, man, I've been trying to do this for years. I can't seem to get even a deal done. What's going on? And I said, well, you're blocking. I don't know exactly, but I know it's emotional and something is blocking you from doing this. So it's a belief that is blocking you. So if your beliefs are aligned with your goal, then you put a little action behind it, and not a lot of action, a little bit of action behind it, and it will come to you. It'll flow to you. It's always worked that way for me. So that's why when a student starts up, when I get a new student, the very first assignment they get is a questionnaire. They have to fill out a questionnaire, and it's a bunch of statements. It's like 30 statements, and they have to rate 1 to 10 according to their belief in the statement. 10 is 100% believe in it, so I believe in this 100%. Yes, that is true to me. One is 100% disagree. So no, I vehemently disagree with that statement and everywhere in between. And they're all statements about money, your ability to make a lot of money, people with money. And I want to see where their thoughts are, where their beliefs are. So, and the first one is money is the root of all evil. If a student puts a 10 there, meaning they 100% believe in that, I know I got some work to do. I have to go into their head and undo those beliefs that they have, or those thoughts they've come to believe. And that's not always easy, but it's mandatory. It has to be done, because if not, they will never make any money. Now, they'll never do a deal in wholesaling. They'll never make any money anywhere. It just can't happen. That's the way God set up the laws of the universe. Your thoughts have energy. They're very powerful, and we're kind of like walking magnets. And when your thoughts and your beliefs put out an energy, well, people that share those same thoughts and beliefs will be attracted to you. So like attracts like, and that's why people come into your life and opportunities come into your life when you start having thoughts and they're consistent to the point where they become a belief. Well, now you're going to have opportunities by way of people or ideas or what have you that are going to start flowing to you, that are going to help you realize that dream. So, but anytime you have contradictory thoughts or beliefs to what you're trying to accomplish, they're going against each other. And that's the one, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the one single thing that will either bring you what you want or not. I mean, if you're struggling, it's not. I wouldn't look at what you're doing so much. I would look at what you're thinking. How much focus? How much focus are you putting into this? Are you thinking about it a lot? Are you borderline obsessed with it? And what are your beliefs towards it? If you're trying to make money, but you don't hold people with money in high regard, you think they're basically crooks? Well, a lot of people think, most of the rich people out there are crooks. They did something crooked to make their money. They stepped on people along the way, but I'm different. I'm going to be the honest guy that makes a lot of money. And guess what? You're not. You may be honest, but you're not going to be an honest rich guy as long as you view other rich people as crooks. And I notice that a lot. It's a very common thought and belief amongst middle and lower class earners or individuals. I have friends that think that. I remember years ago I was watching, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a big scandal at Duke. And it was the Duke lacrosse team. They had a party, and they hired strippers, whatever. And one of the strippers claimed she was raped there, and they ended up being exonerated. She was arrested for lying. But before we knew that, I was watching this news program, and a buddy of mine was a blue collar guy. I love the guy to death. He's one of my best friends. He's like a brother to me. But he made the comment, typical rich kids with rich parents driving around in their BMWs, thinking they can do whatever they want and get away with it. And I didn't say anything, but I remember thinking in my head, I'm like, man, these kids haven't even been convicted yet. And one, you're already condemning them. Two is you're basically painting them with a broad brush, like just because they go to Duke, one, that they're rich, and two is that they think they can get away with whatever they want and, all this stuff. And he had a negative perception of these kids. And it turned out not even to be true that they didn't do it. But also, he's just a blue-collar guy, and he makes a good middle-class living, but he'll never make more than what he makes because of his thoughts about money and people with money. So that's the one common theme right there. When things aren't going the way I want them to go or the way I expect them to go, I start thinking about, what have I been thinking lately? Not what have I been doing, what have I been thinking? And there's a buffer, you're thinking about, oh, man, I want to eat an apple so bad. I'm craving an apple. Well, an apple doesn't appear in your hand. It'll take some time. And then eventually, a couple days later, you'll go to the grocery store, and right on the display, as soon as you walk in, is, brand new, fresh, beautiful, organic apples on sale. So there's a buffer there, and that's done for our protection. But I started thinking about what have I been thinking about lately? What have I been focusing on? Because I don't think I've been focusing on the right stuff, because it's not working out the way I thought it would. And fear is a big issue too. So fear, people say, oh, I want this, but they fear having it. So that's a big, big red flag right there too. So that's the one thing that I was trying to live by is, my thoughts are powerful. And the road to abundance is an emotional road. And that's the main tenet that I base everything else on. So other things I do, though, to this day that are very important to me is I have a morning routine. And I would encourage everyone to have one. Your morning routine doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to change a million times over the years. That's okay. Just do what you think is best. But the importance of a morning routine is to get you in the right frame of mind to crush or to be where you need to be to make it happen. I have a hugely stressful life. I'm basically full-time mentor, full-time wholesaler, and full-time father as well. I got my wife and 2 young kids, ages 6 and 2. They're right now they're both sick. So, it's hard. You got 2 sick kids at home. The daycare won't take them because they're sick. So last night, me and my wife are like texting family members, hey, can you do this? Can you take care of this one? Nobody wants to take care of them because they're sick. So it's like that. I got stress at work. I got stress at home. So I need some outlets. But in order to handle all that, I need to prepare myself. Like lately, what I've been doing is I have about a 30-minute drive from my house to my business partner's house, which is where I'm at now, which is where we work at. So he has a spare bedroom, which is our office. But on that drive, 30-minute drive, a lot of it is a bridge. There's a long bridge I have to go over from Tampa to St. Pete. And I've been listening to this song. It's a song from the 80s, and it's one of the great 80s songs by an awesome 80s band called Big Country, and the song is called In a Big Country. It's their biggest hit of all time. You've probably heard it. If not, I heard it recently on Sirius XM, and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about Big Country. Those guys were incredible. So I have Amazon Music, so I just went to my Amazon Music. I searched up Big Country. I added the album to my music, and now every morning when I get on that bridge, I bust on a little Big Country. And the song, and I'm just like, I'm bouncing in my head like this in the car, and I'm playing the drums on the steering wheel, and it just gets me fired up. It gets me going. And when I get here and I walk in, man, the energy is pumping, and I'm ready to go. So that's one thing I do. But I'm also big on positive affirmations. Don't create a million different affirmations. Create like 1 or 2. You don't want to throw too much out there. So if you want to, and whatever your biggest ones are, I always believe, hey, proclaim what your dream is. I don't, my dream is not to flip a house this week. My dream is to earn $1 million a year passive income or recurring/passive to where I don't have to work if I don't want to. If I want to chase deals, I can chase deals. If I don't want to, I don't have to. So, but that's the main positive affirmations that I recite every day is about that. Hey, I earn $1 million a year in passive income, and it feels amazing. That is my main one. So I'm big on positive affirmations, reciting them. I'm also big on meditation, but it's all sort of under that umbrella of this is emotional. I got to get my thoughts and my emotions and my beliefs in line with what I'm doing. And then it's just about putting action and making it happen. So, yeah, get yourself going. and get the energy flowing, get it in alignment with what you're going after, and boom, it'll happen eventually.
That's incredible, Andrew. I agree with you, man, 100%. Like, emotions are such a powerful thing, beliefs, the thoughts that are going on, and it just seems like when you're trying to get over the hump and trying to make this happen, all sorts of thoughts and life and stress are just constantly coming in, and it's like you have to really fight and battle. And so I do the same thing when I'm working with my students and stuff. It's you know, a lot of times we're going to work on the mindset, and there's just so many faulty beliefs, you know, that there's too much competition, that deals are hard, that, you know, who's going to pay attention to me, and just, you know, fear of success like you were talking about earlier. So man, that's super powerful, and just, you know, it's such a great reminder, like with having the morning routine. What you said is so true. Like I've noticed over the last decade or so, like mine has evolved, and my wife and I, we met in college, and it's about 10 years later. We just have a 5-month-old baby girl, so I'm starting to get a glimpse of what you're talking about, man, and just, you know, I'm doing the same thing. I'm wholesaling, I'm coaching, you know, and the days are busy, and before I know it, it's, you know, 5, 6 o'clock at night, and I want to spend time with my family and stuff, and so just, you know, being able to dial in, get laser focused, you know, is such you know, a key thing. So man, you touched on so much there. And so I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is going to get replayed so much. Just there's so much wisdom in that, man. And I just, you know, I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate this so much. What's maybe one practical tip, just one tip in the world of wholesaling for someone who's maybe trying to, they've yet to do their first deal, maybe they've done a couple deals. What's a marketing tip, just something practical that they can do to get some more leads coming in, and then maybe following that up if people are starting to figure out that first, you know, or second phase of their business. So okay, they're starting to get some calls, starting to get some leads, but maybe they're having a tough time, you know, getting a deal under contract, or maybe they're scared of talking with sellers, or more of an introvert. So maybe one tip for marketing, just one practical tip, and then one tip for the conversion aspect of it, just, you know, for everyone out there, man.
Okay, so hit that button. I can hear myself talking there. So one tip for lead generation is, and I was reminded of this not too long, a couple months ago. I was doing a webinar presentation with another clever investor mentor, Tom Nardoni, who's down in Fort Lauderdale area, and he's older than me and been doing this forever. And he reminded me of something that I had learned years and years ago, but I'd forgotten. And that is, look for problems, not properties. That's what he said. And I was like, oh, man, I forgot about that. That's so smart. So now I teach that to my students. But if you can look at deals in that perspective, then it'll open up your thinking a little bit. Then you can brainstorm. So there's two ways you can go about doing this. You can do what everybody else is doing, or you can do something different. So if you're going to do what everybody else is doing, you got to do it bigger and better. If you know, everybody's sending postcards to absentee owners, so if you're going to do that as well, you have to you got to send it bigger and better. Sorry, that's my phone ringing. Bigger and better than everybody else, and that's hard to do, especially if you're a new investor, new wholesaler. Most people come into this business with not a whole lot of money. You know, and you got guys sending 100,000 postcards a month. Well, you're not going to do it bigger and better than those guys, not at this time anyway. So if you're not going to do it bigger and better, do what everybody else is doing, you got to do something different. And and you got to think outside the box. And if you can think about problems instead of properties, that'll help you brainstorm. Okay, who are some people that, you know, what do people go through? What happens in people's lives where selling their house may alleviate that problem or go a long way to alleviating that problem? So, you know, think about people. What about people who carry 2 mortgages? So somebody puts a house up for sale and then they buy a new house. but they're waiting for the other one to close and there's no buyers yet. I mean, guys carrying 2 mortgages, how long can you do that? So that's an idea. What about people who have liens on properties, or people who get homeowners that get convicted of felons and are going to prison? You know, stuff like that, or natural disaster. Here in Florida, we got a million sinkholes. You know, so those are kind of outside the box targets that not a lot of people are going after. And you know, you start jotting down, start brainstorming about who you want to target. People who you know may need to sell quickly at a discount. And then the second phase, second part is, which is more challenging, is how do I source that information? How do I source that data? So that's where the real challenge comes in, and that also takes some outside the box thinking. So the other day, it jumped into my head that I have a friend who is an insurance insurance adjuster for homeowners insurance companies, and those guys deal with housing problems. You know, tree falls down, cracks your roof in half. You make a claim to the insurance company. They call out a guy like my buddy. They outsource it. They all own their own companies. They outsource it, and he goes out and evaluates the damage for the insurance company. And so I started thinking to myself, I'm like, oh man, I got to talk to him about, you know, telling these homeowners, you know, if they don't want to, they have 2 options now. They probably think they have 1. Well, I don't know. They probably think, hey, I'm going to get my check from the homeowners insurance, and I'm going to make the repairs in my house. If there's anything left over, I'll pocket it. Well, now my buddy can say, hey, you can do that, or there's a company here that I'm affiliated with that will buy your house as is. So you can get the check, you can pocket it, and then you can sell as is for cash, and you can pocket that. So, and buy yourself a new house. And so I got, you know, it's on my list of things to do, to contact this guy and say, hey, is this something we can do? So, I mean, that's sort of outside the box thinking right there that could end up being a windfall. So the first thing is, hey, let's start thinking outside the box. Let's start thinking about problems, not properties. Let's identify some targets. The second part is, okay, now I've identified some targets. How do I source the data? I mean, how do I find these people? And I want to do it on a big scale. I don't want to just, you know, find 1 or 2. I want to know, how do I find, there's got to be thousands of people facing this problem. I want to find the information for all those people. And then the third is the easiest part. How do I get in front of them? I mean, you could send them a letter, send them a postcard, knock on the door, call them on the phone, whatever. Or you could do all the above. So that, you know, that's the easy part, marketing to them. But hey, I got to see who I'm going to target and find a way to source the information and compile the data into a list. And then we just market to them. So, so that's kind of the key right there. If you're not in a position to compete with some of these big time wholesalers out there that are sending, you know, hundreds of thousands of postcards and they're dominating the direct mail market, you got to think outside the box and get creative. And if you can do that, then you can really do some damage. And you got to figure, if you're brand new, your goal should be, in my opinion, is just get your first deal done. You know, that's your number 1 goal, because that's the hardest one to get. Get your first deal done. You will learn a ton in doing that first deal. And then after that, I would say, okay, let's build up some consistency. Let's work on getting a deal a month now and go from there. So, but, you know, you get 1 deal, average deal is about 10 grand in revenue. Now, all of a sudden, you've got yourself a marketing budget. You can break off 2 grand of that. And you know, now all of a sudden you went from a $500 marketing budget to $2,000 marketing budget, and now you've got more options, so you can scale it up a little bit. So for your second question, you know, people that are maybe doing a deal or 2, but looking to build on that. So like I just said, my first goal would be to get your first deal, but after that, my goal would be consistency. That's the single biggest thing I think that drives people out of this business, is they know how to do a wholesale deal, but they cannot do them consistent enough for it to be a real business. So I personally would rather do one deal a month than do one deal 1 month and then 3 deals 3 months later and then 2 deals 4 months after that, because then you don't know when your next deal is coming. And you can't rely on it. You can't rely on it as a steady income and as a real business. So build up some consistency. And how do you do that? You always have to be marketing for deals constantly. I don't care if you've got 10 houses under contract. You cannot stop the marketing machine. It has to keep going. There's no guarantee that you're going to take all 10 of those or any of them to closing. I had a student a couple years ago. He had 39. He got in like 2 months. He got 39 houses under contract. He was dropping postcards in a virtual market, a couple states away, and he dropped one mailing, like 2,500 postcards. His phone was ringing off the hook, crazy, and he was getting like a 10% response, which is, outrageous, and it was like 1,000% higher than what we normally would expect, and and he was making offers. They were accepting them. And we were like, man, this is incredible. And he was like, oh, man, I'm going to clean up. This is incredible, awesome. Well, guess what? He had to cancel all 39 contracts. Did not take one to closing for various reasons. It wasn't an analysis issue. It was the fact that neither one of us were local in that market. So he was going virtual. And the houses he was picking up on paper, not knowing that market, looked good. And he was getting them at the right price, but the reality is the wholesale value of those houses was much less. They were a dime a dozen, basically. They were everywhere. So the value was much less than what we thought, and he had to cancel them all. So he went from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. So, and he was basically stuck at point zero again. He went. He didn't have anything else coming in. He had to switch strategy. So. As my old sales manager at the radio station used to say, you got to keep your funnel full. You got to keep leads coming in. We have leads coming in every single day. 2 or 3 new leads coming in every day. And that is, we want more. We want 10 or 20 new leads coming in every single day, which is what we're building to. So we're scaling our business right now. We kind of started from scratch about 8 months ago. So I told you we were, the market became saturated, went virtual. That stopped working after about 6 months, came back local, and we had to start, getting creative and doing some new things. And now we've started to perfect that a little bit to the point where we feel like we have enough of a sample size to know if we scale it this, well, our revenue should scale up equivalent, at the same rate, basically. So that's what we're doing now. But you got to keep your funnel full. So you constantly have to be marketing. Your focus, your laser focus, is on finding deals. Always. Those are few and far between. It's not like don't worry about finding cash buyers. There's a million cash buyers out there. You don't need to go out looking for cash buyers. You need to look for deals. And always got to be laser focused into finding deals, and you can never stop. I don't care how many houses you have under contract, how many deals you've done, you can never stop, because if you stop that marketing machine, you'll be left basically at ground zero again, and that's a terrible place to be.
Love it, man. That's incredible. Like, I love what you said about focusing on problems and not properties, because so often it's not about the house. There's other stuff going on, and that's something that I definitely believe in 100%. Like zigging while everyone else is zagging. So if you're just trying to do the same thing as everyone else, man, it's so competitive. But if you can differentiate and get good at a few things, a lot of times it's so easy to be a jack of all trades, but a master of nothing. So it's like, getting good at a few things, man, and just keeping that marketing going. Like, man, it's so true. So yeah, I really appreciate, Andrew, you sharing that. And gosh, I appreciate your time. And I meant to say this at the beginning, guys. I will have Andrew's information in that's the first link in the description, the very top, so you can go check out Andrew. Definitely be sure to follow him. Super grateful just for your time, Andrew, and for coming out. You know, the stories, man, it's just like I'm sitting here like eating my popcorn, man, just like listening to it. It just brings things full circle. So I guess in parting here, man, just wanted to say, if there's an aspiring investor sitting in front of you, they've been trying to make it happen for a while, they're getting a little discouraged, they know it's possible, they see that more millionaires have been created in real estate than almost any other niche, they see people doing it, what would be a tip or something that you would say to them to encourage them?
Hire a mentor. Yeah, that would be it. It's go ahead, hit the mute button, Steve. Yeah, that would be my #1 tip. To me, it's an absolute must. I didn't even attempt to go it alone when I decided this is what I was going to do. I just knew there was no way I was going to do it, or even if I did, my learning curve would be ridiculous. So a lot of aspiring investors, they think to themselves, you know, why am I going to spend $5,000 in this coaching program, or $10,000 in this coaching program? I could take all that money and invest it in my business. I could buy bandit signs and do direct mailing campaigns and all kind of stuff. And but the reality is one, that's not a cost; it's an investment. You're getting a return on that investment. And two is, you know, you'll probably never get a deal. You'll probably all that money will be wasted on fruitless ventures. Trying to get a deal, but you'll never get it. And even if you happen to get a house under contract, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to market it? I mean, wholesaling it's not the same as when I got started in this business. And even then I knew a mentor was a must, but today it's much more complex. You know, there's two sides to wholesaling. There's the front end and the back end, and they're both, sales and marketing are involved in both. We're not, as wholesalers, we're not really real estate investors. We're sales and marketing reps. So on the front end, we're marketing ourselves and our services and our ability to help struggling homeowners. and we're also doing sales when we sit in a living room of a homeowner and we start talking to them and negotiate them. That's sales. So sales and marketing. And then once you get the house under contract, now you're marketing that property to buyers, or that investment to buyers. And then when you sit down and negotiate with them, then you're doing sales as well. So we're sales and marketing reps, but there's a lot of bits and pieces, a lot of moving parts in between that. There's, you know, contracts and legalities and negotiating and, you know, all kinds of things. Marketing is so challenging and fickle. You know, you could do something 1 month and it'll make your phone ring off the hook. You do the exact same thing the next month and you get no calls. I mean, that happens. So you constantly have to be on top of it, and you got to track it, and you got to know, you know, what your call response is and what your, you know, return on investment is and your cost per call, and, you know, all these things you got to be aware of. So it can be intricate and complex if you're smart about it and run it like a real business, which you should. So, you know, hire somebody, find somebody that's doing it successful, and ask them if they'll teach you. Offer to pay them. Offer to work for free. It's much better to pay for coaching also. A lot of people over the years have come to me, you know, I'll pay you out of my first deal. And, you know, at first I used to take some of those people, but the reality is none of them ever, not only did they never do a deal, but they never even sniffed a contract. And the reason is, there's a couple reasons, but one of the reasons is that if you have no skin in the game, you got nothing to lose. So if you've just invested $5 or $10,000 in this program or more, you're not likely to quit when the going gets tough because you have a lot of skin in the game. You want to make that money back. But if you have nothing, you've no money in it, you've got nothing to lose but time and effort. And most people waste that anyway. So, you know, that's the reality. So don't look to get cheap coaching or free coaching. Offer to pay for it. Save up your money, you know, save up your money, put $5,000 in the bank and then find somebody who's willing to pay you. It could be one of these big national programs, could be a local guy, but you want someone who's doing it successfully, but also has the ability to teach and convey the information in a way that you can take it and retain it and put action behind it. So a lot of time, most of the time, that's not your biggest investor in town. Most of your top echelon of investors or wholesalers are not good teachers. It's kind of like, why was Magic Johnson a terrible coach? Why would Michael Jordan be a terrible coach? Because they're so talented that they didn't have to scrape and scratch and claw in order to get playing time. They didn't have to rely on hustle or being smarter than their competition in order just to get on the court. It was just so natural to them. They were so naturally gifted that they could rely on their talent. Not to say they didn't work incredibly hard or they weren't smart. They are. But they didn't have to use creativity just to sniff the court or a minute of playing time like your bench warmer did. That's why a guy like Steve Kerr is probably an excellent coach. He's already got a couple of championships under his belt. I think he got a championship in his first year with the Golden State Warriors because he wasn't Michael Jordan. Yes, he was a starter, but he was a three-point specialist. And he probably shot, 500 three-point shots a day, I bet you. Because he knew if he wasn't consistent making that shot, he was no use to the team. He wasn't a great defender. He wasn't a ball handler. He was out there to do one thing, to make three-pointers. And if he couldn't do that, he was not going to be out there. He was going to be replaced with someone else. So he had to work harder at his craft and be smarter to get open, make sure he was taking good shots. And that leads to better coaching. Struggle leads to being a better teacher. So your top investor in town is probably not going to be your best mentor. So try and seek out someone who's doing it successfully, but also has the desire and ability to teach. And that is your first spot right there. If you try and do it on your own, chances are you're never going to do a deal. But even if you do, you're going to have a million learning experiences, sometimes expensive ones, that are just going to cost you money. So why not instead of learning the hard way, why not learn the smart way? So that would be my one tip is hire a mentor. Do it right.
Awesome, brother. Well, I know you're a very busy man. I can't thank you enough for coming out. Seriously, this has been invaluable. It's been so much fun. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, if you got one tip, one golden nugget from this amazing interview, definitely smash that like button. Be sure to subscribe to the channel here. And I take the time to read every single comment, so definitely comment below and let me know if you have any questions, feedback, anything like that. Andrew, thank you so much. I will have your information in the very first part of the description. Guys, I appreciate you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Sweet, brother. All right, man. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.